somebody trying to kill her family.
3 young boys stabbed to death in Craven County. WNCT has team coverage live from New Bern. We're walking you through what deputies say happened and hear from a witness haunted by what she saw. And we're digging deeper into the background of the victims and the suspect, all Burmese refugees, how long they've been living in the United States, and what chased them from their homes across the globe. 9 on Your Side at 5 starts right now.
This is 9 on Your Side at 5.
Good afternoon. I'm Angela Green. Thank you for joining us. The big story tonight, 3 children are dead in New Bern, a tragic crime that's shaken the East. It happened around 11 last night after neighbors on Pastor Street reported a man with a knife in the area. When police arrived, they found the suspect and then 5 victims inside their home. 18 is charged with 3 open counts of murder. WNCT has team coverage on this story. We've been there all day. Our Katie Harden has reported on scene since early this morning. She joins us live from Pastor Street. Katie, what can you tell us right now?
Angela, so far investigators just cleared the scene about an hour ago, and prosecution was able to move forward with 3 additional charges of murder in addition to that assault with a deadly weapon with the intent to kill that was previously filed earlier this morning. Now, what prosecution tells me is it's already been an uphill battle with this case already because of the language barrier there, and now they're making sure they cross all their T's and dot their I's since the suspect is not a U.S. citizen. But one thing is for certain, this crime is like no other that the city of New Bern has ever seen.
I think it's important to realize this was not a random act of violence in this particular situation. The suspect and the victim's family knew each other and in fact lived next door to each other.
Investigators say 18-year-old Ila Dutu knew the 3 boys he allegedly stabbed and killed. He lived next door to the family who had only moved in a few months ago.
The victims, the juveniles, were all brothers, ages 1, 5, and 12.
First responders arrived at the home at 11 Tuesday night after multiple neighbors called police. That's when they found 2 with a knife and 3 victims inside the home. 2 of the boys were dead at the scene. The 3rd was taken to the hospital where he later died. The boy's mother and sister had left the home, and their father was at work at the time of the stabbings. New Bern police, along with the SBI, were on the scene all day, collecting evidence and fine-tuning details.
This is a horrific event for any community, and we're certainly going to investigate it to the fullest.
Prosecutors say investigators are working for the victims to find justice for the young lives lost.
Any murder scene weighs on you, especially one where there are children involved. And I will certainly hand it to our law enforcement officers and those who process crime scenes. They try to set aside, personal issues and things that they would think about in looking at a crime scene to get their job done.
Now, counselors are on standby for those officers that responded to the scene here, some saying it was the most gruesome scene they've ever had to go to here in New Bern. We're also working with those investigators to find out details about what happened. The mother and the sister of those victims in good condition tonight, released from the hospital. We'll have more details on what they went through last night, and we'll also tell you why the nationality of both the victims and the suspect is making this more complicated for prosecution. Live in New Bern, Katie Harden, 9 on Your Side.
Thank you very much, Katie. Now, what we do know is that the victim and the suspect are all refugees from Burma. We're told that 18-year-old Tu is the victim's neighbor. He lives next door with his parents. Folks with the Interfaith Refugee Ministry tells us there are around 1,800 Burmese refugees in the area. Many of them came to escape persecution and war in their home country, located in Southeast Asia. Now, they say the refugees had to pass an in-depth background check before getting approval to come to the States. We're told the Burmese community here is very close, and neighbors say the family has only lived in New Bern for about 2 months. WNCT's Josh Birch is also on the scene in New Bern. Josh, you spoke to a neighbor who was there last night and whose daughter actually helped translate for the police.
Well, Angela, shocked, disgust, and saddened, just some of the words that people here in the community in New Bern are using to describe what happened here last night. One neighbor in particular says the events that she saw last night will stay with her for a long time. Abu lives right behind the house where the stabbing happened, and she said the mother actually ran to her for help. She described the mother's hair as being cut off and blood covering her back. She says her daughter has had nightmares since it happened.
My daughter's so sad, last night she came back to hospital and she crying, she can't sleep.
Some I spoke with today who have lived in New Bern their entire life say they have never seen anything quite like this. Coming up at 6, we'll hear from one organization who works with refugees and who actually knew both the victims and the suspect in this case. Live in New Bern, Josh Birch, 9 on your side.
Thank you, Josh. Now stay with us online at WNCT.com. We will have updates for you there, and of course right here coming up at 5:30, 6, and 11. Also in Craven County today, a man accused of shooting and killing his wife this week made his first appearance in court. 38-year-old Shelton Van Lilly is charged with an open count of murder in the death of Jennifer Lilly. The incident happened at his home on Campbell Road Monday afternoon. Sheriff Jerry Monette says the couple had a history of domestic violence. In Onslow County, officers are investigating a homicide from last night. It happened near a Shell gas station not far from Cedar Creek Drive and Gum Branch Road around 7:30 last night. Sheriff Hans Miller says a black man on a scooter wearing a helmet with a face shield shot and killed 33-year-old Tony Vince Lewis Jr. Lewis was driving a 4-door Kia at the time. Miller says they collected evidence at the scene and have leads.
We do have a pretty good idea that it was a personal crime against that specific victim and not a random shooting.
If you have any information on this crime, contact the Onslow County Sheriff's Office or Crime Stoppers. Chief Meteorologist Jerry Jackson joins us now for an update on the forecast. Jerry, this sunshine helped us forget just how much of a chill we got last night.
Well, at least we recovered some during the day today. It was a cold night of weather. It's going to be another cold night of weather outside tonight, but in between we had a lot of sunshine to enjoy today. Let's get started and show you what's going on live out at Atlantic Beach this afternoon. Temperatures dropped about 10 to 15 degrees for our cooler or for our coastal locations today compared to yesterday, but for those inland areas it was nearly a 30-degree drop. Yesterday we were in the 80s in Greenville. Today we're in the 50s. New Bern at 57. Jacksonville checking in at 59. All is quiet locally. All the true active weather is to be found well up to the north and west in the form of snowfall out toward the Dakotas, and also strong and borderline severe thunderstorms in some of the southern states outside today. Up in a few minutes we'll talk about an increased chance of rain that will be heading our way for Thursday and Friday. Angela?
All right, thank you, Jerry. Patients of a known pain management clinic in Kinston say they're left with more questions than answers. We showed up to the East Cove Psychiatric Office today. We told you yesterday how the owners were busted for taking part in an illegal drug ring. Now today, patients were outside wondering where to go next for help. WNCT's Andrew Ruiz looking into it today and has more from our newsroom. Andrew.
Angela, this office provided psychiatric and pain management services. Patients I spoke to say they had legitimate reasons for being there and were not your so-called drug dealers. The SBI arrested Dr. Joanna Walicki Shannon and her husband, Dr. Walter Shannon. Both face charges of obtaining controlled substances by fraud. They are accused of writing bogus prescriptions, giving them to employees to fill, and then turning them around and handing them to patients.
These people should really be ashamed of themselves. They're already illegal drug dealers because they're doctors, and then they're out here writing prescriptions and then turning around and bringing the medication back to them. They really, I mean, if it were me, I would be ashamed to show my face back in any town.
One patient I spoke to came to Dr. Shannon's defense. She says he ran a tight ship and was helping her overcome a drug addiction.
He's ran a very strict program from what I saw. If you fail one drug test, you're out the door.
At last check, both doctors still have active licenses. While I was there, Dr. Walicki Shannon entered the office but chose not to comment. So at this time, we don't know if they will continue practicing medicine or not. We do, however, know that East Point is offering its services to anyone eligible. You may also try Port Human Services on Heritage Street. That information is on our website, WNCT.com. Andrew Ruiz, 9 on your side.
Thanks for that update, Andrew. A Jones County man is facing animal cruelty charges after deputies say he restrained the animal in a cruel manner. Deputies say an animal crimes investigator found this large and extremely emaciated Shepherd Mastiff mix tied to a stake in the 800 block of Highway 41 East in Trenton back on March 3rd. Deputies say the dog did not have any food or water. 52-year-old Edwin Morrell surrendered the dog and was arrested. The Secret Service is conducting more tests on a letter sent to the White House which tested positive for cyanide. Biological tests on the letter were negative, but a chemical screening test came back with a presumptive positive reading for cyanide. It's a potentially lethal toxin that attacks the heart and nervous system. The letter never made it to the White House. It was screened at an off-site facility miles away. The Secret Service is not commenting on its criminal investigation. The White House has not said if the letter was addressed to President Obama. A former U.S. Air Force mechanic is accused of trying to cross into Syria to join ISIS. 47-year-old Tarad Pugh pleaded not guilty this morning in federal court. He's an Air Force veteran who's lived overseas for the past year and a half. Investigators believe he flew from Egypt to Turkey in January to cross into Syria. Turkish officials became suspicious and sent him to Egypt, where he was deported to the U.S.
What you've seen here is greater international cooperation, no doubt, around the threat of foreign fighters flowing into the Syrian conflict, but also potentially flowing back into Western countries.
The FBI says it found 180 jihadist videos on Pugh's computer. They also found a letter believed to be to Pugh's Egyptian wife, where he wrote, "I am a sword against the oppressor. There is only two possible outcomes for me, victory or martyr." The jury in the Boston Marathon bombing trial hearing more technical evidence today, still to come tonight on 9 on your side at 5:30. We'll get an update from Boston on day 9 of testimony. Plus, a former local basketball star now playing on the big stage will talk to the West Craven grad before tonight's NCAA tournament game.
And allergy season is in full gear, but we had a big cool down across the area today, and by tomorrow we could see a better chance of rain. We'll have all the details of your First Alert forecast next.
Now your WNCT 9 First Alert weather.
Well, we certainly enjoyed a lot of sunshine outside today. I can definitely feel it. We were joking about it yesterday. The allergies have kicked in, and yeah, I'll be like this for about a month now.
I'm going to knock on wood. Mine do not get as bad as yours are getting right now. So crossing our fingers on that. Thank you.
It's a family tradition. Yes.
Oh, same here. Thank you. Coming up next, a former West Craven standout now playing in the NCAA tournament. We'll catch up with him before tonight's big matchup, and later on our coverage continues on the tragic triple homicide in New Bern. WNCT has team coverage. We're back right after this. Happening tonight, the field of 64 will be rounded out as two more teams will advance after day 2 of the play-in round. Tipping off in game 1 at 6:40, North Florida takes on 16 seed Robert Morris, and there's a local tie here. West Craven alum Aaron Tate starts for Robert Morris. We caught up with his family at their home in Cove City today, and his mom, stepdad, and two younger brothers getting ready to cheer him on. They've been his #1 fans since he started playing basketball in middle school. Aaron's mom, Angelica, says last time they were together watching Aaron play was the night the Colonials won against St. Francis, getting them into the tournament.
I'm just one of those parents that love to just jump up and cheer, and it was just amazing. I mean, words can't even explain how it makes you feel as a parent.
Tate graduated from West Craven in 2012. His stepdad Alan recalls some of his favorite times watching Aaron play during high school.
The South Central game was definitely a memorable moment. They had a lot of pressure for that season, so that was a very good game. His 1,000-point game was another special moment for him and for us.
Our friends at Robert Morris University caught up with Aaron ahead of tonight's game. Aaron says he would not be here or where he is today without the support of his family and friends in Eastern North Carolina.
Being a part of this and being my first time coming from like a small town where we don't really experience a lot of that stuff, I mean, it was like a dream come true. Like, I never really thought that I would be in this position that I am to play in the NCAA tournament on one of the biggest stages in the whole world. And honestly, it really hasn't hit me, but it's coming on a little more and more.
Before Aaron ended up at Robert Morris, he previously committed to another school but decided it was not right for him. That's when he found out about RMU and knew it was all meant to be. The winning team will face off against #1 seed Duke on Friday.
All right, coming up tonight in sports, we are live tonight at Williams Arena, Menzies Coliseum. For the first time ever, we've got postseason basketball for the women. It's the women's version of the NIT, and we'll have a preview for you coming up live in sports. All right, back live tonight. Williams Arena, Menzies Coliseum getting set for women's basketball. As we said, the first time ever that the postseason comes to East Carolina. In East Carolina and Radford, plenty of tickets available. Come out and support the East Carolina women, the East Carolina Lady Pirates, if you will, in the WNIT tonight. We're back with more news for you coming up after this.
This is 9 on your side at 5.
Chief Meteorologist Jerry Jackson back now. We're still going to be chilly for a while, even though spring is at the end of the week.
You're right, and we at least made a nice recovery this afternoon into the 50s, but we were certainly waking up to temperatures in the 30s. We're going to be in the 30s again tonight. But once we head into Thursday and Friday, the other thing we will have to contend with will be a better chance of rain showers moving back in. So instead of cool and dry, it's going to be cool and wet, and that same pattern is reflected in your coastal forecast.
All right, stay with us. Coming up next, we'll head live back to New Bern for more on the tragic triple homicide you see there from the scene. 9 on your side at 5:30 starts in just a minute. The big story tonight, 3 children are dead in New Bern. It's a tragic crime that has shaken the East. It happened around 11 last night after neighbors on Pasture Street reported a man with a knife in the area. When police arrived, they found the suspect and then 5 victims inside their home. WNCT with team coverage on this story all day long. Our Katie Harden has reported from the scene since early this morning. Katie, what have you seen throughout the day with this investigation?
You know, Angela, it's been hard enough because it's been a very long day. This incident happened last night at 11 p.m. and investigators have been on the scene till just a little bit over an hour and a half ago is when they finally cleared. So what we were seeing not only is that the investigators here were tired because many of them stayed on the scene the entire time, but also when speaking to some of these investigators and law enforcement officers, we could hear in the voice just how tough it really was on them. You know, responding to a scene like this is hard enough as it is, but when it involves a 1-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 12-year-old. These law enforcement officers are saying it's very, very hard, but they still are remaining very professional today, making sure they get everything they need to get done so they can move forward with this case.
All right, Katie, and we know that this investigation will be continuing for a while now, but what hurdles are investigators having to deal with in this particular case?
You know, so far, Angela, they've seen some pretty big hurdles. Even last night when they initially showed up to the scene, it was hard to communicate with not only the suspect but the victims here. So not only are they having to work with that communication barrier, but they're also having to bring in officials from out of the area to be able to move forward with the prosecution properly because of that communication barrier and because the suspect is not a U.S. citizen. They want to make sure they have everything covered so they move forward with this case and get the best result for the victims here.
All right, thank you, Katie. Of course, we'll be visiting you again later in the show and coming up much later. Thank you for your coverage on that. Thank you, Katie. Prosecutors say investigators are working hard to find justice for the young lives lost. District Attorney Scott Thomas tells us any murder scene weighs heavily on you, and while officers try to set aside personal issues, it can be very difficult. This is not the first tragedy officers in New Bern have had to deal with. It was March 31st of last year when Officer Alexander Thalman was shot to death not too far from today's crime scene. The New Bern Police Department says it will have counselors on staff to work with those officers who first responded here and will offer stress debriefing for the next few days. The Craven County schools are certainly impacted by this tragedy. Superintendent Lane Mills released a statement earlier today saying the school family is deeply saddened by the news. There will be additional resources for classmates, staff, and families who were affected. 2 of the children attended school in Craven County. School board members who worked closely with the children tell us they're really saddened by this loss.
It does call resources deep down inside. in terms of identification with the student or students, and then certainly all of those that work most closely with that student or those students. They're directly touched.
The school board will bring in resources like counseling to help everyone cope with the school's community loss as well. And happening tonight, folks in Chocowinity come together to remember a teenager killed in a high-speed crash. A vigil is planned for 16-year-old Stone Prichtel at the Chocowinity Recreation Complex starting at 8 p.m. Community members are encouraging everyone to come out and support his family. Troopers say the Southside High sophomore was traveling around 100 miles per hour when his car crashed on Highway 33 Sunday night. Chief Meteorologist Jerry Jackson joins us now to brighten up our spirits with some weather. It's a little chilly overnight, but another beautiful day outside overall, Jerry.
That's right, Angela. It has been a gorgeous afternoon of weather. Lots of sunshine from start to finish.